of awesome, I'm Ava J, and this is Bookish Pixie. So last week I asked you guys what you would like to see me vlog more about, and I've gotten some great answers so far, so if you think of more, feel free to keep them coming. But this week we're talking about writing when you don't want to. So here's the truth. I love writing. I've used writing as a reward for years, and even now that it's work, I just really love writing, which of course is not a surprise to any of you here. But I don't necessarily love writing every single time I sit down to write. The same goes for revising. Revising is actually my favorite part of the process. I enjoy it more than first drafting most of the time, but sometimes I will sit down to revise and I just really don't want to. So what do you do when you have to write but you're just not feeling it? If it's just one writing or revising session, honestly, I just push through it. When I'm first drafting, I set a word count goal, usually around 2,000 words a day, that I have to hit every single day until that draft is done, and I try my best not to make exceptions. When I'm revising, the process can be a little different because some days I have to revise more line edits, or other days I have to do overarching edits that require me to kind of jump around the manuscript, and it really depends, but I make sure I make some progress even if I don't feel like it. In both cases, it helps to have a goal or some kind of to-do list that I can check off so I know I've done something. That way, even if I've only checked off one goal, at least I know I've made some progress. If, however, the feeling lasts, then it might be time to sit down and ask yourself why you're dreading the writing. I know with one of my most recent projects that I'm revising, initially I was a little hesitant to start because I was kind of overwhelmed by the amount of work I had to do. And even though I was excited about the end product and I knew it was going to make it better and I even had a plan, it still felt like, how am I going to do this? Other times when I was first drafting, I've hit that don't want to write feeling, and I realized it was often because I didn't know where I was going in the manuscript. Or I knew where I was going, but I wasn't too excited about it, which is kind of a worse problem. So how do you fix these issues? How do you get past it? In cases of feeling overwhelmed, the first thing you can do is break it up and make a plan like I like to. I've written some posts about that, so I'm going to link to them below. Even if you make a plan and you're still feeling overwhelmed like I was recently, you just have to take it a step at a time. If you isolate your problems and tackle them separately, then it makes it a lot easier to digest what you have to do. Then before you know it, you start crossing off things that you've already done and you realize, I've made some progress. Which is a really great feeling and totally erases the gross I don't want to revise feeling from earlier. In the case of first drafting and not knowing where you're going, I usually find it's best to stop what I'm doing and figure out where I'm going. Sometimes this is even on a scene level, like I'll know that a character has to get from point A to point B, and I know what point A is, and I know what point B is, but I don't know the in-between, and sometimes that gap in between can be enough to paralyze me. That's when I'll pull out a pencil and start making a bulleted list of what if this happened, what if the character did this, what if this other character came in, what can I do to make this more difficult for my protagonist, what can I do to get my protagonist through this. Once I do that, it becomes a lot easier to see how the character gets from point A to point B, which then in turn makes it a lot easier to write. Even if you're a pantser and you're really just dreading the writing process and you're not sure what to do, it can be really helpful to just figure out a couple steps so that you can get your momentum going again. In cases of first drafting, when you realize you don't like where your manuscript is going, that's when you need to put on the brakes. The thing is, if you're not excited about where your book is going, then your readers aren't going to be excited about reading it. So if you, the writer, aren't excited, that's usually a sign that something is off. It might be a pacing or plot issue. It might be that you don't have enough conflict or tension, which I find is often the problem. Usually when I get bored, it's because things are going too well for my protagonist. Conflict drives the story, so if you hit a lull in your plot, then it might be time to bring in a man with a gun. Not necessarily literally, but conflict. But above all, the most important thing is that you come back to your writing and you keep going. Know that every writer, even the best of the best, have trouble writing from time to time. Writing is hard and it doesn't necessarily get easier, but what you learn is that you can push through it anyway. As J.A. Conrath said, there's a word for a writer who never gives up. Published. So that's all I got for today. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe and comment, and I'll see you guys next week.